Thank you all for your attendance this morning at short notice. We'll introduce the top table Sporting Director Ian Blease and Chief Executive Gary Hetherington. Gary will say a brief few words to start with, and then we'll be open for questions. The event is being live streamed. What we'll do is, after a short period of time, we'll end the live stream so that we can have embargo questions for the media after that. Gary, would you like to introduce things?
Yeah, thanks Phil. Thanks everybody for coming this morning. It's been a pretty eventful time, eventful last few weeks for us here at Headingley and Leeds Rhinos, with the sad passing, of course, of Rob Burrow, with the game against Castleford here at Headingley, with the appointment of Ian Blease, with the trip to Hull FC last week, and just only yesterday, the departure of Rohan Smith. So a pretty eventful time. A lot's been happening, and of course I think the key focus this morning is Rohan's departure and the search for a new head coach, which we'll be able to answer questions on. And perhaps if I start by opening it up and asking for questions.
Gary, just elaborate a little bit for us on why you thought a change needed to be made.
Well, as I say, it's been an eventful time. I think it's fair to say several reasons. Since Ian's appointment, there's been meetings with Ian and Rohan and myself and Rohan and myself and Ian. All three of us have been meeting on a fairly regular basis. And it's fair to say that over the course of the season, results have been disappointed by our own expectations and fairly inconsistent as well in that regard. I think that our last two performances and results have been indicative of that. And I know certainly from Rowan's point of view, we were particularly keen that tomorrow night against Lee, the focus should be on the Rob Burrow tribute, and the focus should be on the Rhinos fans getting behind the Rhinos team and helping it to secure a good performance, and not necessarily about anything else. And that was a particular key focus of Rowan's. So it was generally felt that a change was necessary at this moment in time, and that decision was reached mutually and very amicably.
So just reading between the lines of that statement, it would suggest that Rowan facilitated the parting to make it less of a distraction ahead of Friday. Would that be the case?
I think what's fair to say is that it was very amicable conversations, very open and honest conversations, and yes, we arrived at an outcome. And that's not always the case in delicate discussions. But I would just certainly pay tribute to Rowan, his integrity, his general interest, not only in himself. In fact, not in himself in actual fact, but in the club and the club's welfare, in the fact that the Rob Burrow tribute and everything that goes with it, and that's testament to the man himself.
How would you quantify Rowan's contribution then to the team over the last 2 years?
Quite significant, and sometimes team performances and results can mask the actual situation. When a team's winning on a regular basis, everybody thinks everything in the organisation is pretty good, and it might not be. And conversely, if the first team are not winning on a regular basis, everybody thinks that everything's chaotic and a shambles, and once again it might not be. So Rowan was with us just over 2 years. It's fair to say he inherited a very difficult situation. The team was second from the bottom of the Super League, and we had a pretty disjointed rugby league operation in many respects. And Rowan had quite a remarkable first season. Took the team to the grand final, which was quite a remarkable achievement. Last season was always going to be a difficult one. I think we got 13 of our players coming out of contract, but that in many ways that was the start of the journey of putting together his squad, and a squad that he would have going forward with. And that was very much the case for this season. There was quite a lot of changes made to the squad this season. A lot of changes have been made to the backroom staff, and that's in a pretty good shape now in terms of the player development side and all the sort of supporting sections of a rugby league department. And Rowan has been instrumental in that change. And when I talk about him doing some really good stuff behind the scenes, that's what I'm referring to. We're in a pretty good shape in that regard. We'll get even better now that Ian's on board, of course. And part of Ian's brief is to have a good look at everything that we're doing. It's a fresh pair of eyes. To have a look at everything that we're doing and where can we improve in every aspect. And there's some areas that we need to improve quite a lot, and other areas probably we're going okay. But certainly, in terms of Rowan's contribution, he certainly leaves our organisation in much better shape than what he found. I think that's always an indicator as to somebody's contribution that they may have made to a team and a club. And Rowan has certainly made a contribution. It's disappointing that our results have not gone the way that we and he hoped they might do this season, but certainly his contribution has been quite a significant one.
I'll ask you about his successor or potential successor in a moment. Ian, could I just get your thoughts on what's been an eventful first week in your post? How's it been for you, and what sort of input did you have in Rowan's departure?
Yeah, I think as Gary said, it has been an eventful week, eventful the first few days. When I first sat down with Rowan, we had a discussion, various discussions with Gary and back to Rowan, and we decided to obviously mutually part, which was difficult. Obviously, it's never easy. But I'll always make the decisions for the best of the club. That's what I'm here to do. And we arrived to that decision pretty quickly once we started to talk a bit. So, and I pay respects to Rowan. As Gary said, he's done a tremendous job while he's been here. Having said that, this year performances aren't where they should be. This club expects to be at the top of the league. That's where we needed to get to. And I recognise that pretty quickly. Hence why we did the mutual agreement.
Gary, what sort of person do you need to come in now and pick up where Rowan left off?
Well, Ian's going to be leading that search, and it's always a difficult one because being a head coach of a Super League team, and indeed any team in any sport, is a difficult job. It's a very difficult job, and there's all sorts of pressures, and sport is like no other business. Sport, we all live in a goldfish bowl existence. Every decision that we make is analysed and scrutinised and often criticised. That's the difference between sport and other businesses. Sport is a business, but it's very different to most others. And the role of the head coach is quite a significant one. Clearly, the person's got to be able to coach, but there's so many more qualities required for one to be successful. And especially at a club like Leeds, there's a high expectation, as indeed there is at other clubs as well. So it's a person with special qualities and ideally experience of having done the job. That task falls to Ian. He's going to be leading that search. I've no doubt that there'll be quite a bit of interest in the job. It's a job that many people would aspire to, and so would like him to do so. There's no time scale on when that needs to be completed by. It's important that obviously we make the right appointment, and that's the most significant challenge that Ian's got.
Have you had expressions of interest already?
I'm sure there will be. Yeah, there has, and it's all dealt with in the most confidential manner possible. And as I said, it's a tough challenge to actually come across the right person and the right fit. Ian will be performing that search and making recommendations, and that's what will take us forward.
Ian, is this a search that will take in Down Under as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one area that I'm keen to explore. Yeah.
And obviously, Paul Rowley would be linked with this post, whether you were here or not, Ian, but you are here now. Can you understand why people might link him with this post, and is there any potential in that, do you feel?
I think, like Gary said, we're big on confidentiality in this process. It's early. It's only just started. There's no time scale on it. Talented coaches interest me. Paul will be one of them, obviously. His name has been bantered about by you guys for a while now. So, but nothing's happened yet. We are concentrating on tomorrow. The All That Is one game at a time, which is what the boys are doing outside, and the coaching staff that are in the interim now, taking over Sheb and Grixie. So that'll be good for me to watch them. They're talented. So I've got no preconceived ideas who it will be. I'll do a thorough research on it all. Yes, applications are coming in as we speak, but I'll make sure we do the job properly.
How patient are you prepared to be?
Yeah, pretty patient, but I'm aware of the needs on that pitch, that the club will be judged off the back of the performances like they are now, and we need to move up the table, and that means, if it means bringing a coach in quickly or in the interim, I might look at that, but all avenues are open at the moment.
Just finally from me, I just want to ask you, Gary, about what to expect on Friday night, because obviously it's going to be quite an emotional occasion. Well, not quite emotional, a very, very emotional occasion. What do you think Friday night's going to look like here?
I think it'll be a terrific sporting occasion, and so it should be. Jeff Burrow, I was with Jeff when he was speaking to some members of the press the day after Rob passed away, and he was telling them that he very vividly remembers bringing Rob to his first ever game. Of course, Jeff is a lifelong Leeds fan, and he brought him to his first game, and it was Leeds versus Lee at Headingley. And at the time, Rob would be about 5 years of age. And he distinctly remembers it because Rob thought he was cheering for the wrong team because names sound similar. Jeff had to explain that wasn't to be the case. So it's quite ironic in some respects that it is Leeds versus Lee tomorrow night. And of course, we're playing against a very strong Lee team. I think the game is significant in itself. We've got two teams desperate to win, but the occasion itself is bringing together pretty much a capacity crowd. It's bringing together people who perhaps have not been to Headingley for quite a number of years. I think they're all coming to pay their respects to Rob Burrow for his contribution to rugby league, his contribution as a person, his contribution to MND as well. So it's been very significant, and I think his passing, and indeed before his struggle with MND and the support he's had from such as Kevin Sinfield and a whole host of others, has in many ways been quite remarkable. It's certainly brought rugby league together. We've had so many fans and former players from different clubs come down and pay their respects. It's brought other sports together. It's brought politicians together. It's brought the whole nation together like no other. And I think it's certainly put rugby league in the national spotlight, which like I can never remember before. So there's so much significant factors that's been related to this, and of course tomorrow is an opportunity when people can come to the game, pay their respects to an iconic rugby league player and an iconic person, and a great family as well, because I think the way that the Burrow family have managed this very difficult situation is great credit to them. So we as Leeds Rhinos were hosting the event, and we want to give it the due respect that it deserves. It's an event for not only Leeds Rhinos but for rugby league and indeed all sport, and it'll have a good audience, and hopefully we'll also have a very good game to go with it as well.
Thank you both. Good luck tomorrow.
Will either of you travel overseas? I know, Gary, when you did the Rowan appointment, you went to Australia. Will either of you be travelling to Australia?
All this has happened pretty quickly, so there's no stone will be left unturned. So we will consider whatever might assist in making the right decision will be considered and provided. So the answer is could well do.
You know, I've rarely come across a situation where a coach has had so much vitriol directed against him. You know, on any article written about him, if you look at the comments underneath, they've all been very antagonistic. And it's interesting that what you've just said about him sort of makes me wonder why he's gone, really, because, you know, he has done some very good things. There's no doubt about it. And you've explained some of them, but I just wondered whether you've overreacted to, and instead of reacting in the way you did, whether you might have explained to the fans, perhaps a bit more effectively, as you've done here, about some of the good things that Rowan actually did at the club.
On your first point, Martin, thank you very much for those kind words, and indeed it's been the whole club that's come together, and that includes all parts of the club, the fans, the directors, the sponsors, the players, the staff. They've all come together to actually contribute towards the Rob Burrow events, and I am particularly proud of the way the club has managed all of this. And as I say, tomorrow in many ways is yet another major event. So I think it has put the club under quite a bit of pressure in actual fact, but I think it's come out of it so far in pretty good shape. On your second point about the timing, and you see those criticisms that you mentioned, Rowan, that's really it is really unfortunate. And of course, all teams in all sports have to suffer this type of criticism towards their team and their manager or their staff and so on. And it's one of the unfortunate elements of the business that we're in. But I don't think you can do much about it, in truth. Maybe a bit better explanation might appease some, but many people who actually criticise to the extreme in the way that they do probably are not interested in listening anyway, and have got a pretty fixed and narrow view of life in general and things. So it's I don't think rugby league suffers as much as some other sports, but nevertheless it is disappointing when this happens at any club, and it does, and we can only just be disappointed when it does actually, because people don't normally understand the situation, and they don't understand the background factors, and they don't give a balanced view. And the silent majority are those who are supportive but don't say so. They're the silent majority, and there's quite a lot of those at Leeds Rhinos.
Of course, there has been, this year has been very disappointing. When you started with 3 wins from your first 4 games, and things looked very promising at that stage. You beat Salford here, you beat Catalans, and but then you ran into 1 or 2 difficult results.
We have, Martin, but I think one thing that we as a sport and you people as the media don't necessarily give enough credit to is that we have a very competitive competition. We've got about, the 10 of the 12 clubs are really competing on a fairly equal basis. So it's inevitable that one of those is going to be number 1 and one of those is going to be number 10. And there's not much to choose between them. And on a given day, anybody can beat anybody else. And this is probably the most competitive Super League we've had in 20 odd years. And that's a good thing, particularly for the neutral fans. But it's inevitably it's going to throw up teams that are disappointed with their results at the halfway stage of the season, and we're one of those.
Absolutely, but the final point from me though, having said all that, I think as a team, as the first team here, you've had an awful lot of problems this year with injuries apart from anything else. And I think Rohan was, fighting a battle with one hand tied behind his back. Because of that, you've got players out long term, young Morgan Gannon out for the season and so on. James Bentley out with concussion symptoms also, and various other players who have had quite significant setbacks in various ways. I mean, with respect, it's difficult for me to see how any coach would have found it easy. I mean, if Paul Rowley, for example, Ian, had that many injuries at Salford, where would you have been at that club? So, I'm no defender of Burrow. I don't want to, behave here as though is sort of advocate, but I do think he's had a tough time.
No, I concur with all those points that you've made, Martin. They're all, very relevant, and they're part and parcel of the mix that we and indeed all of the teams have got to manage on a day-to-day basis. But collectively, everybody's looking to improve and to get bigger and better, and we're no exception.
James, Ian, a lot was made about Rohan Smith's lack of experience as a head coach. You going for someone who knows the role inside out?
Again, I'm open to see what the market brings, so no preconceived ideas. We need a talented and probably established coach. I think that's for certain, but in terms of who it will be, I'm open to the views.
Is Brad Arthur a coach you've admired from afar?
Yep.
Do you think he could be a good fit here?
Again, not gone to that stage yet, and I wish I could share more with you, but I'm not at that stage yet. We could concentrate on tomorrow night's game.
Could you envisage, though, that someone like Brad Arthur would be on your shortlist?
Yeah, probably envisage that.
Come on, Pete.
Right, Ian, I was just going to ask what qualities to make a good coach? What sort of attributes will you be looking for?
Yeah, I think I just touched on the experience side of it. I think we need somebody who's experienced, talented, tactically. Man management is always high on my agenda. It's a huge club, so you've got to be able to man manage a lot, obviously. But I think the performances always reflect on a coach, which is what we've not really had this season here. So we'll be looking for good performances and an identity that the coach will bring towards the club as well.
Ian, you've said there's no sort of fixed time frame on things. With that in mind, does Chev and Scott have an opportunity to show what they can do, and have either of them expressed whether they'd be interested full time?
Yeah, we chatted yesterday, and the talented pair of coaches on their journey, on their career journey, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they've done. I've watched it today, and spoke to them at length yesterday about taking over in the interim to see where we get to with nothing, nothing set in stone with them either. But show me what you can do, and I'm really interested to see what they can do.
Was there any? I'm sure that the defeat on Saturday was significant, but was there any one particular moment that kind of made your mind up on a change of direction was needed with Rohan?
No, I think during the conversations, which will remain private, mutually agreed situation we've got to, I think that was the deciding factor.
You often see when a big job like this becomes available, there's a bit of a rebuild needed, but has Rohan left some foundations for someone to come in and hit the ground running, do you think, with the young players you've got? There's obviously some big name players as well. Is there potential for someone to come in and get to work and get the club up the table straight away? Yeah, and I think,
looking at not just Rohan, what Rohan's done and the pathway, the scholarship, the academy is really good here, as we all know. The youth coming through, the players that are coming through. Very excited to see them. I've not laid eyes on them first hand yet, but seen and spoke to a few of them. So that really excites me. I was speaking to John Bastian this week about that, and I'm going to meet with them next week. Not a chance really to get into the nitty gritty of that, but that's one thing I've never had in my previous job at Salford, so I'm really excited to see how that pans out. And yes, got a couple in there tomorrow in the game, so that'll be interesting to see how they go. But that's one section of the club that really excites me.
The expectation that Leeds belong at the top of the league is obviously partly founded on the success of the golden generation, in which Rob was a big part. What's a realistic time scale for getting back into that picture, and also how big a part will Rob's legacy play in rebuilding to reach that point again?
I think in sport, it's really hard to put a time scale on when you're going to be successful. It's not given, is it? You've got to work hard for it, as we all know. So I wouldn't put a time scale on it. It'd be wrong for me to do that. But I think once we establish who the new coach is, whatever time that will be, whether it's interim or full time, you'd want to see a marked improvement on performances. That's what I'll be looking for straight away, and the fans will be looking for that. And yes, obviously with Rob's tribute tomorrow, first and foremost for his family and his wife and kids, that'll be great to see and watch, and we want to do tribute to him tomorrow. That's what it's all about from now for the next 24, 48 hours. So I'm really excited to see how the boys perform. Packed house here, which will be great. We need the fans behind us. We'll be looking for a great performance from the onset.
Just more generally, how much scope is there for immediate squad improvements, not necessarily the same position, but a Jackson Hastings style signing just to give the squad a boost?
There's a little bit of room for that. We brought Sam Essay in from Wigan yesterday, but that was on the back of a pretty critical Monday morning when I walked through the door and we had the 4 incidents that we all know about. So yeah, we'll have a look at that. But again, it's been such a rush, and the last 4 days have been pretty hectic. But if there's someone there that we see and we identify, we'll have a discussion at board level.
There's been a lot of negative talk. Well, Leeds are the ultimate sleeping giant, aren't they? Now you're on the inside, how excited are you about what could be achieved here?
Very, very excited. I think I used that in my first presser. I think that the staff and the people and the board and Gary and everybody and Paul Caddick alike have been tremendous. I think the word thank you and you're a star I've used a lot of times this week because people are so helpful. Because obviously it's a big organisation. Hopefully they'll fit into that pretty smoothly. But the help I'm getting and the people around me is tremendous.
And Gary, just for you, you're obviously here at the time with the right appointment. Is this squad capable of going on a similar run to 2022?
It is, and a few other squads have as well. And once again, I just come back to the fact that we have got a really competitive competition. We've got at least 10 teams that can beat anybody else on the day, and they can all win the next 6 games. Or they might lose to the next 6 games. That is the competitive nature of the competition that we've got, and we're flying under the radar. We're not telling enough people just how good a competition this is, and that means that Leeds and Wigan and St Helens and Salford and all these teams are competing. They're competing every week, and if a team's got a few key players missing, then the chances are it may well get beat. But we don't give enough credit. We're still looking at brands and names and saying that they should be winning and they should be losing, and that's not the case anymore. And nor should it be. That's one of the jobs of the salary cap, creating competition. And we've created a very, very exciting and a very, very competitive competition.
Would you accept though that Leeds are held to a higher standard. And
I would accept that Leeds, that there is an expectation, so certainly from the Leeds Rhinos fans, that Leeds Rhinos are going to be there every week. Absolutely. And I dare say the St Helens fans probably think the same about St Helens as well. And likewise at other clubs. So there is a level of expectation, yes, and the bigger clubs have got an even heavier burden to carry. But as I said, that is a nature of the industry that we're in, and that's what makes it such a fascinating industry to be part of.
Is it wholly realistic then for the new coach or the new interim coach to have time to repeat what Rohan did a couple of years ago and get you to the grand final and perhaps even go one better this season?
That's a big call straight away.
Yeah, that's what we're expecting of Ian to go, of course.
Listen, Gary's right, the competition at the moment, we probably don't shout about it enough, do we, at high levels. It's good. My expectations high of this club though as well, and I've come here well aware of previous and what we've got to do. So I embrace that. My expectation is to win out there, and that's what the coach will be focusing on, and the team as a whole. But yes, there is an expectation here, as all other clubs. But I embrace that. I challenge that. I want to bring success back to this club. So that's what I'll be aiming for.
Ian, just slightly off topic. You mentioned the injuries earlier before that cropped up this week. That's, I think, 7 out of your squad now who aren't available for this week because of head injuries. Obviously, you've only been here a week, less than a week. Is there any particular reason, do you think, for that? Is it just coincidence? Are Leeds taking head injuries more seriously or a different approach than other clubs?
No, my experience is that all clubs have to adhere to the protocols. We've done that well. I complimented the doctor on Monday. I saw what was happening when I walked through the door and thought, wow, this is... But credit to the medical staff, they're looking after our players, which is, foremost in our minds. On the injury situation, every club gets them. Some get them worse than others. I think when we got to the grand final in 2019, I remember Gary saying to me, you've been lucky with injuries, but we had a good backroom staff, so I sort of give them credit as well. Same here. We'll work with the injured players, but every club gets them, but it's how you come through them. We've got a good squad. Got to remember, we've got a good squad, and we've got some, as we said, the youth coming through as well. So when I looked at the squad this week, thinking where will it map out, obviously we brought Sam in, but I looked at it and thought, still a great team that can go and do a job, and that's what I'll be looking for.
Ian, just slightly off topic, is there any update on Reece Martin? Rowan said last week the club had offered a contract, but that was as far as we know there's other clubs interested. Is there any?
Yeah, it is off topic, and no, there isn't an update. Thanks, Matt.
Would you envisage that any new coach would be able to bring their own backroom staff, or at this stage would you stick with what you've got?
Yeah, again, early days to consider all that. It's a question that, not a question, it's a piece of the jigsaw that I've thought about pretty much, last night maybe a little bit. One for consideration, I think. See again how that maps out who it is, what we can do, what we want to do here, what the new coach would want to do, and somehow work that out. That's part of the process, I guess, yeah.